So our subject today is how to prepare for an OSHA inspection. I don't know how many of you have been through this before. Unfortunately for me, I've been through, I don't know how many OSHA inspections, and if you count all the other regulatory agency visits when I was working in industry, I ran out of fingers and toes a long time ago for all of those visits that I've had. And some of those have been positive and some of those have been negative, and there are some things that I've learned over the years on how to be best prepared for a regulatory agency visit. And so hopefully we can share those today to help get you prepared, and let you know why we're kind of placing some emphasis on this right now and in just a second. I want to start out with a statement though. And this is business. There's nothing personal. I don't dislike OSHA inspectors or EPA or other regulators, but I treat an inspection from a regulatory agency as a potential risk to my organization. And so I'm going to handle it like business. I'm going to ensure that I'm doing everything right. And so part of that means that inspector is not my friend. I don't, at the time of the visit. That doesn't mean I treat them poorly or rudely or anything like that. That just means I treat them as if they have a potential to harm my organization. Not that they're trying to take us down, but that citation that we get could have potential ramifications against my organization. And so I'm going to treat this very seriously. This is business, and I don't say, hey, between me and you, you know, hey buddy, how are you? That's not the time for that. This is business, and we're going to treat it as such. So just take that for what it's worth. The regulatory burden is gigantic that we're facing. I'm here to tell you, you can be a professional in compliance, and you don't know everything that's out there. And if you think you do, I'll ask you to show me your refrigerant management plan, because guess what? You're required to have one for the refrigerant. If you have over 50 pounds of refrigerant in one of your units, you got to have a plan, and you got to track leaks, and you got to do all this. I didn't throw that in here just to make people nervous on those things. You probably never get an inspection on that. But the regulatory burden is huge, and it's really hard to keep up on everything. We have dozens, if not hundreds, of different regulatory agencies that are visiting us, and it's hard to know everything that's coming. But I know that you will be inspected. I know that you will have various parts of your organization reviewed, and so we've got to be ready. So when's your inspection coming? I don't know. I got a pretty good idea that most of you will see an OSHA visit in the next few years. Just here's a quick thought about how quickly technology is changing regulation. I went on a fishing trip last year to Alaska, and yes, I made that fish look a lot bigger than it really was by holding it close to the camera, but that's another story. In Alaska, here in the state of Utah, you have your fishing regulations. You have, we used to call it the proclamation. You have this little book that you look at maybe once a year to find out what the regulations are, or maybe if you're going to a different water, you'll look that up. Well, in Alaska, they have emergency regulations that come out, which basically means that every day you go fishing, you need to log on to the Fish and Game's website and determine what the rules are for the specific water you're going to fish that day. And it changes almost on a daily basis. And we just kind of, what? You're kidding me. I have to do this in the wilds of Alaska. Well, that's what regulation is kind of doing to us. Even though so we have these thousands and thousands of regulations, they change. And the rules can change on us, and we have to keep up on those. That's a tough thing. One of those is the OSHA 300 log electronic reporting requirement that that came out in this past year. This has just gone live. Well, we got so what it is it was requiring employers to put their 300 log information online. That would give real-time data to roughly real-time data to OSHA, so they can go out and make audits and inspections based on who's having the most accidents and injuries. We did just get a clarification from Utah OSHA on that. Evelyn Partner told us in last month's loss prevention webinar that Utah OSHA, who controls the OSHA compliance for the state of Utah, they don't want this information. She said, don't send it to us. Don't put that in, because they already get that information from the Labor Commission. As you have an incident and have to submit a first report of injury to the Labor Commission, they have access to that, so they can see what's going on there. But that just tells you that we have real-time data, and they can really see what's going on. By the way, we submit those if you file a workers' compensation claim for an injury, we submit that the first report of injury for you, and so that goes into the state. All right. Let's dive back in. Lots of different regulatory agencies. The big one that we're worried about right now is OSHA. Like I said, Utah is a state plan state. They take the federal regulations and along with a few state regulations. They don't have a ton, but they do have some Utah-specific regulations, and they implement the compliance plan for the state of Utah. That's a good thing. That's our regulators are close to us, and so if we've got a problem with a citation, or we have a question, they're just a phone call away or a trip to Salt Lake, and we can talk with them. So that's a good thing. Okay. That being said, Utah OSHA, along with other state plan states, conducts more inspections than federal OSHA does, and sometimes they can be more detailed. Okay, if you want to see what kind of inspections have happened for local governments or your agency in particular, you can go to this web page, and that's a great big URL. If you type in a Google search OSHA establishment search, it will pop up with this page, and then you can go in and search time. You can search for your specific employee or your employer's name and find out if you have any previous OSHA inspections. Or you can do like this one. I just put in county. I was doing a presentation to counties recently. How many OSHA inspections have counties had? And so you can put in city. You can put in whatever search results and see how the city across the way is doing, and see what kind of citations they got. Okay, that'll help us know what to plan for. Well, OSHA inspections happen for a number of reasons. Sometimes they're planned, and we'll talk a little more about that in just a second. Sometimes you'll have a complaint. You'll have a disgruntled employee, or you'll have an employee that's concerned about their safety, and they call up OSHA and say, "I want you guys to come out and take a look," and they do. Sometimes you have an accident, a serious accident that happens, and we make a report to Utah OSHA. In most cases, they will follow up on that and give you a visit. Sometimes it's a referral. You have another regulatory agency comes in and they say, "Hey, you guys really ought to go take a look because I've got some concerns about this place." And sometimes it's a follow-up. Sometimes they issued multiple citations a year ago, but they're concerned about that, and they come to do a follow-up inspection. Okay. Well, when we talk about those pre-planned OSHA inspections, last month we had Evelyn Partner from Utah OSHA come in and give us a presentation on a local emphasis program that UOSH is just implementing in the state of Utah. And what the local emphasis program is that local governments are going to be the focus of attention. In the past, we've had really less than 2% of the inspections have gone towards local governments. And just a sidelight on that, under federal OSHA, local governments are exempted But in Utah, they're not. And as of right now, they're really going to become a focus of attention. So this local emphasis program will take 50 local government agencies at a time and visit all of them. And you say, who is going to be inspected? Well, here's the list that we were given last month. Municipalities, this includes counties as well. And I think counties are probably higher on the list. Just hearing through the grapevine the contacts that have been made, I think counties are probably going to be hit pretty hard early on in this. But municipalities and counties with a population greater than 1,000 residents. Special service districts are now on the list, and in the past they really have been overlooked unless there's been an accident or a complaint. And then a major focus on public safety. So all police departments, all fire departments, and correctional facilities are on this list. So in a matter of months or years, we don't know how long it's going to take. It'll be 50 at a time, and they're going to systematically go through and do inspections of all of these local government agencies. Just a reminder on there, if you got questions about anything here, type it into the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll answer those as we go. So we know that an inspection is on its way. The question is when, and the other question is, will we be prepared when the inspector shows up? These inspectors show up unannounced. They don't let you know. It's actually a crime to tip somebody off that OSHA is coming to visit them. And so they're going to show up at your front desk and say, "Hi, I am so and so. I'm a compliance inspector from Utah OSHA, and we're here to do a wall-to-wall inspection." And guess what? That's what you're going to be doing for the rest of the day and probably the rest of the week. They generally show up at really inconvenient times, by the way. Generally, if I go to a restaurant and I've just ordered my food or it's just about to get there, is about the time that OSHA shows up at the front desk, and we have to run and go and address this visit. Well, it's going to happen. You ask yourself, can I be fined by Utah OSHA for deficiencies that they find in my operation? You can be cited, and you will be cited. You'll receive citations, but you cannot be fined. So under code it says you can't be assessed a monetary penalty. So that's the government finding the government for these things. And you say, whatever. If I'm not going to get fined, who cares? Well, citations are a big deal. Why are they a big deal? Well, for a number of reasons. One is simply perception from the community, perception from our employees and coworkers. Hey, we just got a stack of citations. We got 10 OSHA citations. What does that mean about my workplace? Am I safe? Do I need to look for a job somewhere else that maybe is safer? That can affect our organization. If we have serious violations or ones that could be termed as willful, that's a criminal citation, and you can actually go to prison for that. I had a vice president right out of college. I took a job for a company that had just had a serious visit from OSHA, and we had a stack of citations with hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines proposed. And an OSHA and the compliance inspector sitting across from a vice president looked at that vice president and said, "If you have one more accident, you're going to prison." Just like that. And anyway, here I am, a new guy coming right out of college, and I got to deal with this situation. And happily we did, and we built a great safety program there. But that's how serious it is. And so don't just blow off citations. And if you get a citation and it's not correct, it's important that we correct the issues, that we contest those citations. Okay? And a couple of things too is inspectors remember, if your place is a piece of work, if they see a lot of problems, chances are that you get a visit again go way up. All right. Here's another option, and go back and watch the webinar from last month. It's called the Local Emphasis Program, UOSH Local Emphasis Program, and Evelyn Partner will explain this a little more. But Utah OSHA has two sides: the compliance side, those are the guys that write the citations, and then the consultation side. And these are the folks that come out to help you to ensure that your safety program is in place. This is a good option because you get some protection for 2 years from having a UOS inspection, a Utah OSHA inspection. However, the hook on this is you have to agree when going into this consultation that you'll do everything they say. So whether it's compliance or whether it's a consultation, you have to fix what they bring up. So our recommendation to you is I would get ready first before you bring them in. I think the consultation program can be a very positive thing, but you got to be prepared. Otherwise, you're going to have this gigantic laundry list of things to fix, and it may really impact your operation. So give us a call, Doug, Brenner, myself, and we'll help walk you through. We can come out and do a risk assessment for you and show you where the low-hanging fruit is, so you can fix all of that before you bring Utah OSHA in. So please feel free to give us a call if you just want to chat about things, or if you want us to come and do a risk assessment. We're happy to do that. That's what we're here to do is to help you build a good safety program that, number one, keeps our people safe, but also keeps you in compliance as well. All right, I'm going to skip the video. Like I said, OSHA is going to show up unannounced, and so we've got to be prepared. So a couple of things to think about in our preparation is we want to create a team. Who needs to be there? I was talking to a member one day, and I said, "So has OSHA ever showed up at your facility?" And he said, "Oh yeah, we had one about 6 months ago." And I said, "Well, how'd it go?" "I don't know." "You don't know? What happened?" "Well, they showed up at the front office, and we said, okay, go take a look. And we didn't hear anything more from them." What did I say at that point? I screamed. "Ah, don't do that. You've got to handle this as if the FBI has just showed up at your organization. This is a risk to your organization, and you've got to handle this as serious business. So you want to have a team. The big boss ought to be a part of this team, whatever that person's position is, a manager, administrator, mayor, commissioner, whatever that person's title is. The big boss needs to know about this when it happens. Do they go along on the inspection? Maybe, maybe not. That just kind of depends on your plan. So we need to have a list of who's on this team. And we want to have their names and their contact numbers available. So if you have a receptionist at the front desk, that person should have a list of, here's what I do if OSHA or another regulator shows up. I ask them to identify themselves, and I will show them to a conference room and say, have a seat right here while I get our team together. Will they wait? And answer is yes. In most situations, they'll wait probably a half hour. So if you're out to lunch, have that person give you a call and get back there, assemble the team, and then have an opening conference. There are certain situations where there may be a warrant involved where they're not going to wait. They're going to execute a search warrant and go in. So. But in most cases, they'll sit down and wait a reasonable amount of time for you to bring your team together. Everybody needs to know what their job is when OSHA shows up, and we need to be able to get in touch with everybody. Okay, and once again, have those facility procedures. All right, we need to be prepared for the type of inspection that is coming. That means we need to identify any documents that they may want to see. Let's not mix those documents with documents that they can't see. There are certain documents they can, but if there are attorney-client privilege documents or sensitive files that they're not entitled to, don't mix those with the documents that they can see. So let's identify those ahead of time, identify what they may want to see, and ensure they're up to date and available. I always like to create a binder with the documents for a certain type of regulatory agency. So I've got everything I need in one place. I don't have to go search through file cabinets to get the materials. That does a couple of things. One, it makes it much easier to find. It's kind of stressful when a regulatory agency shows up. Where is that? Oh, and we have a tendency to kind of have our brain go into neutral, and we can't remember where things are. And that does something with the regulators. It makes them go, I don't know if these guys know what they're doing. If you've got a binder with every document in there that you might need, and they ask for something, and you go to that material just like that. They ask for the next thing, you go to that document that quickly, and all those documents are in good shape. That gives the inspector a warm, fuzzy feeling that, hey, these guys know what they're doing. They have their stuff together, and they're probably not going to dig as deeply as they would if you said, what? I'm not sure what you're asking for, or I can't find that. All right. Ken just asked a great question. What kind of documents are they looking for? Here's a list. Just looking at an OSHA inspection. Of course, other regulatory agencies will be looking for other stuff, but they'll be looking. They'll want to do a paper compliance audit as part of this inspection. If they're doing a wall-to-wall, they're going to look at paper. They're going to want to see your OSHA 300 logs. That's your injury record keeping logs. And just FYI, we've got a webinar in the HR section of our webinar recordings on OSHA record keeping. So if you haven't done that to this point, or you need a little refresher on that, there's a webinar that'll take you through all the ins and outs of that. So that's one of the first documents they'll want to see is your 300 data. They'll want, and how long do I need to keep a 300 log? 5 years. So we need to maintain 5 years of those records. Do I keep them for longer than that? Yes, but I'll keep them in a separate file. I'll keep those 5 years. So when OSHA comes out and they want to see that, here you go. They're going to check and make sure that you reported all of your OSHA recordable injuries. We talked about that first report of injury that gets turned in when you file a workers' compensation claim with the trust. They'll look at that and say, have they recorded all of those OSHA recordable injuries on that form? They may ask about training records. If you have a certain type of exposure that requires training, maybe forklift training, maybe hazard communication, they're going to want to see records on that. Medical qualification, if people are using respirators or other programs that require medical evaluation, those might be records that they would want to see. Exposure data, if you're working with chemicals that produce exposures that we need to evaluate, they may want to look at that. So, for example, maybe we run a crusher out at a gravel pit, and there's potential for silica exposure, or we have guys cutting concrete. They may ask us, have you taken any samples of your airborne exposures for silica? And so they'd like to see that stuff. Reporting requirements. Under Utah OSHA, we have 8 hours to report any serious or fatalities, disabling, significant, and serious injuries or illnesses to Utah OSHA. And we haven't reported those. That's our first citation. They're going to say, hey, this happened. We showed up today because we read the newspaper, or we saw the news that said you had a serious accident happen at your facility and you didn't report within 8 hours. So here's your citation. Let's talk about that incident. So any reporting that you've done, if you have something like that, I would document those conversations, maybe just with a memo to file. This is what we did. We had an incident. We reported Utah OSHA, put date and time, those things, so you can show that you've been in compliance. There may be other records as well that they're aware of, and that's really dependent on the type of standards that you fall under. All right, I like to recommend you have a go bag. Have some equipment available to help you effectively handle this inspection. And why do I say have it prepared in a bag or a box? It's so we can get it at a moment's notice. Now this is a little easier now with cell phones having cameras that will record video and everything in our pocket all the time. That makes it a lot easier. We used to make sure we had a camera with batteries, because my recommendation is anytime an inspector takes a picture or a video or a sample, we should duplicate what they do. Why? We want a record that shows exactly what they took a picture of. The sample that they took, we want to be able to replicate that. So we have our side of the story, and so when we get done with this inspection, we can sit down in preparing our plan. We can review the information that we saw. Just an FYI on that, most of these OSHA compliance inspectors will carry a video camera with them, and that camera is going to be running probably the entire time they're out on their inspection. So just plan on that. They may not be holding it up, filming something, but it'll be running, and they're going to be recording the things that we say. They'll be recording the general work environment where people are, and they'll take that back to their supervisors and review that as they consider the type of citations that you might be receiving. If you have specific chemical exposures, you might want to have sampling equipment available so you can replicate a sample that they're taking. Okay. I always like to have a flashlight, tape measure, paper and pencil, those types of things available so I can take notes, so I can measure. If they measure something, I want to measure it as well, and record what we do, because that could be really germane in a discussion about the citation. All right. We talked about this, that the OSHA inspections are unannounced. Inspectors have a right to come in and inspect your facilities. Now, there are certain areas where, certain situations where we can restrict that. We can close the door and say, go get a warrant. And I'm here to tell you, they will go and get a warrant, and when they come back, they won't be very happy, and your inspection's not going to go as well. So I would recommend not requiring a warrant from that inspector. But they have the right to inspect your facility's operations. That doesn't mean they can just walk around willy-nilly. We want to escort them. If we have a requirement that they wear personal protective equipment or have an orientation training, if that's what we do for all visitors, do it for them. Don't cut corners with them. If we say, you may have a requirement that the person have 40-hour HAZWOPER training before they come onto your facility, you can require them to show proof that they've done it. If you have a steel toe and a hard hat requirement, make sure that they have those. They carry a kit with that type of personal protective equipment, but maybe they want to go into an area that requires a respirator with a certain type of cartridge that they don't have. Don't allow this inspector to go into an unsafe area. Tell them this is a respirator required area and this is the type of protection that you need, and hold them to that. They have a right to talk to your employees. They can do this. Interview one-on-one. Now, you can tell your employees if the inspector asks to talk to a certain employee, just tell the employee, hey, this is your right. You can talk to them or not. If you choose to go and talk to OSHA, go and tell the truth. Don't speculate. If you don't know something, tell them I don't know, but go and tell the truth. Now, if they ask to talk to one of your management staff, supervisor, manager, lead, those types of people that are a supervisor, those can be or should be interviews that you attend as well. Those are not in interviews that they can pull that supervisor off to the side. They are a representative of the company, so to speak, and so if they want to talk with them, your team can be involved, or your primary person, compliance person, can be involved in that interview. Okay. They can record their observances. They'll take video. They'll take pictures. They'll take samples. All of these things are within their rights. So when the inspector gets there, greet them. If they come to the front desk, the receptionist should greet them. Get a business card that shows or credentials that shows who they are. Escort them to a conference room and ask them to wait. Get there and get your team on the way. It should be polite, but at this point we don't offer information until we've got our team into the area. Once we get there, we can ask if they ask for what they're there for. Let's see, I've got just a little bit ahead there. We want to notify the top manager, the head honcho of the organization. OSHA's here for an inspection. There are certain situations where we may want, if they come in with a warrant, or if they allege that there's some criminal activity going on, that we would notify our attorney and maybe have them present. Okay. Our reception needs to be trained on these procedures. So when do we need an attorney? If a search warrant is produced, if it's FBI, Department of Justice, maybe EPA, maybe OSHA, we might want to notify. If it's FBI or Department of Justice, I would bring your attorney in. I'm not an attorney, but talk to your attorney and they'll say, yes, I want to be involved with that. Or if there's any alleged criminal activity, we definitely want an attorney involved. Here's some standard practices in working with inspectors. These guys are out doing a job. Their job is to help keep our workplaces safe, and so we want to treat them with respect, with courtesy, professionalism. But there's a certain limit. We don't want to be buddies with the inspector, like I said before. We want to tell the truth. Don't lie. Don't shade the truth. However, if they ask a yes or no question, that's the type of answer that you should give back. Don't elaborate on things. Don't say, oh, you think this is bad? You ought to check this out. We don't want to volunteer extra information. Give them what they ask for. And if you don't know, or if you don't have the information, it is perfectly appropriate to say, I don't know, or I need to get back with you on that, and then follow up on those things. All right. We want to have our opening conference where we determine the scope of the inspection. Why are you here? What are you looking for? And they'll say, you had an accident, we're in to inspect the accident. Or they'll say, we're doing a wall-to-wall inspection. You can expect us to be here for 3 days or a week or whatever it may be. But define the scope so we know what to expect. We can ask them, do you want to see any documentation? What areas are you looking to see? Just try to define what the scope of this inspection is. You know, this is not, we're not trying to obstruct or anything, but we want to know what the scope is so we can be prepared for that. If they bring a search warrant, ask for time to review the warrant. They may, and we can ask to have a delay for our attorney to come in. They may say, sorry, we have a warrant, we're coming in, and we're looking for this. Don't impede or try to stop them from doing that. But you can ask. All right. If it's an arrest warrant, let them do their job. Make sure it's for a current employee. Don't stop them from doing those things. If it's just a subpoena, those are supposed to be issued at the person's house, not at their place of business. I think we covered all of the opening conference stuff. here's some basic things about the inspection. Once we've done our opening conference and they say we're going to do a walk around of your facility, I recommend that you always have 2 of our people for every inspector that is there. Why is that? Well, number one, it's hard to keep track of everything that goes on. I would have one person be the lead that goes into this. They're the person that's answering questions and leading the tour. The second person that goes along should be a scribe taking notes. If they ask to see a certain piece of information while you're out there, or to talk to somebody, have that second person go and find them, so we don't drag the inspector through the entire workplace if they're only looking to see one specific place. Inspections have a tendency to expand if they walk through the entire facility when they're not anticipating on that to start with. They say, oh, hey, what about this over here? You know what? Let's just do a wall-to-wall inspection. And so let's double up on those inspectors, so we have people there, and so we can keep good information. Anytime the inspector makes a comment about something, hey, this employee is not wearing safety glasses in an area where I believe they should be wearing safety glasses. So we want to document that. Do we go and tell that employee to put their safety glasses on? The answer is yes. If there's a problem, if we've got something that isn't right, let's take care of that right now. And in the end, when we're doing our closing conference, let's remind the inspector, hey, we'll ask them, what are your concerns? And they say, remember that guy that didn't have his safety glasses on? And we say, hey, remember we asked that employee to put his safety glasses on, and he did, and he apologized because he just forgot and left them up on top of his head. We can clarify, we can take care of those problems. If the inspector takes a picture, you take a picture from the same angle. If they take a measurement, you do the same thing. If they take a sample, if you have the ability to do that, you take a sample as well. Okay. All right. I haven't seen a ton of questions coming in. Feel free to put those into the chat box, and I'll answer those as we go along. All right. Was I one behind on my slides? I'm sorry. If the inspector notes an issue, fix it. Show good faith. Show that we're working with them and we're going to fix the problems. Same thing with samples. Let's duplicate what they do. If they request documents, that is fine. That's within their rights. If they're attorney-client privilege things, then we can ask our attorney and say, hey, can they see this? If they ask for a stack of copies, just ask for time. Say, let me know what you need, and we will make copies of those. Do not give the inspectors your originals. Why is that? Well, you'll never get them back. How do I know that? Well, we won't go into that. Don't give them your originals. Ask what they need, make copies, and provide those to them. If you tell them you're going to give them something, do it. Of course, you can always check with your attorney and make sure that that's appropriate for them to do that. When the inspection is done, well, let me back up, because before we get to the closing conference, as we're walking the inspector through our facilities, we want to find out what they're concerned about. If you had an accident and they're coming to follow up on that, take them to the accident site, and I would say take them the most direct route to that accident site if that's what they want to see. Don't give them a full facility tour if all they're coming for is to look at this accident that happened. There are ways that you can walk people through a facility that are more expeditious. I won't go into any more detail on that. I'm not obstructing or anything like that, but I can tell you there are ways that you can walk inspectors through the facility that are better than others. Let's see. close. Oh, we have a question here. Do you have a checklist to prepare for the inspection? Great question, Don. I actually do. I have a preparing for an OSHA inspection checklist and it's really these steps that we're talking about today. I will send those out when we send out the notice that the webinar recording is up. In addition to that, like I said, if you want us to come out and do a risk assessment, we can definitely help you out and give you a laundry list of things to work on, and we do have some other checklists as well. At the closing conference, once we're done, the inspectors have made their walkthrough. We want to have a closing conference, and you should always ask for this in the opening conference. Bring the big boss back. Bring your entire team in, so we have the people available, or have the people there that will be involved with this, and so there's no confusion about what is said and what is done. In this conference, we want to ask about the findings. They probably aren't going to say, "I'm going to cite you on X," but they'll say, "I'm concerned about X. I'm concerned about this person that was not wearing safety glasses where they ought to be wearing safety glasses, or you don't have a respiratory protection program and we found some respirators out in your workplace." They'll say, these are my concerns. Does that mean what they say there is the only thing that you could get cited on? No. Like I said, they may take pictures, they may take video, and when they go back to their supervisor, the supervisor will say, "Oh, look at that right there. There's a violation, and we need to cite that." Or they'll make a follow-up call, "Hey, send me the training records for this," and if you're not able to provide those, then they may give you a citation for that. So in this conference, we want to clarify any misunderstandings. If there's something they don't understand about your operations, clarify that. Say, "No, this is what we do." I had a situation where we got a citation from OSHA on training. And it was specifically that a given employee who'd been involved in an accident had not received training in his language so he could understand. And I was kind of blown away when we got the citation, and so we requested an informal conference and went in and said, "We don't understand this citation because this employee has received training in his language, and here's all the materials." And I took a stack of training documents, as well as training with the particular employee's signature on it, that he'd received it in his own language. And there were a lot of blank stares in the room when I produced that. So this is a good time to clarify any misunderstandings that may be out there. This is not the time to argue. It is the time to clarify, but arguing may come later. Let's also explain or summarize the things that we've done to do things right. So, you know, the inspector says, "Here's my concern," and we can clarify, or we can say, "Remember, we fixed that. The parking brake wasn't set on that forklift, but we put it in the on position when you were there," et cetera, et cetera. Let's clarify what we've got. At this time, it's really important to take notes. So we can document what the concerns of the inspector are, so we can address those before we get the citations in the mail. So resolve our misunderstandings, make clarifications. If they're ask, are there violations that you suspect? And they may directly tell you, "Yes, I believe there's a violation of XYZ." They may not. They might be a little. They might be a little more guarded. Okay. If they ask you to sign anything, consult your attorney. Don't sign anything until the attorney says, "Yeah, go ahead." We want to write a summary memo. after this closing conference that summarizes what the experience was in the OSHA inspection. So just write down the specifics of, they showed up at X time. We had an opening conference. They wanted to go see this accident site. We went out there. The inspector commented on this, and this. Asked questions about that. In our closing conference, the inspector said that they anticipate giving us a violation or a citation for a violation of this standard. And we finished, and then they said they would be in touch by whatever. I always like to keep these very to the point, that it's just the facts. Don't include any conclusions or opinions about what happened, what we think, we're in compliance or we're not. Just the facts. Mark it as draft and attorney-client privilege confidential, and send that to your attorney, and also to the top management. They're probably going to be involved with this, but they definitely need to be in the loop when this happens. So attorney and the top management need to be involved. If there's a problem, we'll answer that one. We'll answer that one in a second. Follow up. If there's a problem that is identified by the inspector, fix it. Get on that same day. Let's fix any problems that we have. If they identified that we haven't done training for something, let's get the training done. If you don't have a program, or if you don't have the ability to take samples to verify exposures, give us a call, and we can help out with that, or get with experts on various things. And that's really one of the things that we specialize in, is helping you out to know how to comply with other standards, or getting you the information that you need. Track these items to completion. If you come up with a list of things, put those on a list and bird dog those until they are all complete. We want to have any problems taken care of before the citations arrive. Let's see, and you might want to have a conversation about giving Utah OSHA a call and saying, hey, you identified some concerns in this visit that we had last week. We've completed all of those. By the way, here's some pictures. What I say on that. Have a talk with that. Maybe talk with your attorney. There's really specifics about any inspection that you may or may not want to do that. But if it was a pretty amicable inspection and it was a simple thing, hey, we had a guard missing on a table saw, or a guard missing on another piece of equipment. We replaced the guard, and we take a picture of that and send it in. The guard's back in place. It's fixed. There may be situations where they'll not give you a citation because you did the right thing and you were on top of it. Okay. If we get a notice of violation or a citation from a regulatory agency, we need to respond within the time frame given. We need to do what they require us to do. If we send letters back and forth to a regulatory agency, ensure that everybody knows that we're communicating back and forth. We should make a copy of any communication that we have, so we keep that for our records. I would always send those letters certified mail, return receipt requested, so we ensure that they got the communication that they've requested, or that we've just provided. So if you get a citation, these are notices of alleged violations. And we need to post a copy of that for 3 days at the point of the violation. So if we have a confined space entry violation, it needs to be posted at that location. If it's more of a paperwork type thing, we can probably post that on the bulletin board where it is visible. Okay, that's our requirement. we can request an informal conference. An informal conference is simply to clarify things and to start to contest a citation. There are many times you're not going to be talking about fines, but there are many times when you can make a citation go away by clarifying, no, here's the training information that we have that you failed to ask for when you were here, and so we want to clarify that this does exist and we do meet the requirements of the standard. And in many cases, those citations go away. I was talking to one of our members the other day, said that years ago they had over 20 citations issued to them after an OSHA visit, and after their informal conference, that was taken down to 2 citations that remained. So you can do some good. So think twice about the informal conference. Don't just take the citations. If they got it wrong, call them on getting it wrong. Now, contesting, they may stick to their guns, and we think we're right. There's a formal process to contest that. You want to talk to your attorney and make a plan for contesting that. Okay, I won't go into a lot of detail on that because that's a whole other presentation on contesting it. As an employer, you have the rights to request an identification for an OSHA inspector. Have them show you their credentials. You can request an inspection warrant. I wouldn't do that. I would stay away from that. You can request to be advised by compliance officers why they're there, have an opening and closing conference, and you can accompany them on their inspections. The one area where you can't go along is if they request an interview with a line employee. But once again, if they're management employees they're interviewing, you definitely can be there as a management representative. Okay. I think we can contest citations. I think we've got that. You can also request for a variance in certain situations. That's tougher to get. All right. Employees have the right to talk with an OSHA or other inspectors, and they can do that. They can do that privately. They can request an inspection. They can remain anonymous, and they can they can object to the citation abatement periods and say this needs to be faster. They have a right to a safe workplace, and they can seek that without fear of retaliation. So just like our harassment discrimination things, retaliation is a big deal, and it's something we want to avoid. So an employee complains about our workplace, don't retaliate. Don't fire them. Don't do things, put them on a bad shift or give them the really bad job because they called OSHA and complained about us. We need to treat them with respect. If they have a concern, that's something that we need to address. If they lie about something, can we take action? Possibly and probably. And so that's something you want to talk to your attorney about. All right, so we want to make sure that we're using a team approach. Don't go this alone. Make sure that management is involved, whatever your upper level of management, so they know that this is happening. They know what's happening. Don't just wing it. You have some experts available, and I'll throw our team here at the trust into that level or into that group. If you have an OSHA citation and you've got questions, how do I do this? Give us a call. We are more than happy to help out with that. Let's make a plan. Don't just sit back on these citations. If they issue those things, or even if they're concerns, let's address those today. If it's a big thing that's going to cost us money, let's get on it today and get a plan ahead. All right. Here's OSHA's top 10. Doug talked about those today. I'm just going to hit really quick. I've already gone too long. Areas that I think OSHA is going to hit every one of you on when they show up. Hazard communication, and that means do you have your SDS sheets? Do you have a written program? are your secondary containers, I put whatever in a spray bottle, does it have a label on it? Have we trained our employees? That's one big area. Trenching is going to be another one for most. Confined space entry is a huge one. OSHA is going to be keyed in onto that. If your employees are getting into vaults and manholes and places like that, you've got to be up snuff on that. So you want to have a list of those, have training, entry procedures, make sure your equipment is being used, that you've got a good entry permit and you're using those, and you maintain copies of those. Bloodborne pathogens is another one. We look at public safety being a real focus of these OSHA inspections. Make sure that we've got people trained on bloodborne pathogens. FYI, there's a webinar recording on bloodborne pathogens. It'll get you a long way towards having this training. But if we have people that are potentially exposed to blood or other bodily fluids, we need a written exposure control plan that keeps us up to that. Respiratory protection is another one. We spent some time on that in the other webinars today. Lockout, tag out. Those are the big ones that I think OSHA is going to be looking at. These inspections can actually be a positive experience if we are prepared and we have our stuff together. I had an inspection one time, Division of Solid and Hazardous Waste. And as we went through, I had my binder there, and he asked for one thing, and it was the first tab in my binder, and he reviewed that. And he asked for the next thing, it was the next tab, and he reviewed that a little bit less than the first one. And then he asked for the next thing, and it was the third tab. And by the third item, he just kind of did a cursory review because he knew that we were on top of things and that we had stuff together. They actually wrote us a letter complimenting our organization on our compliance and that we did a great job. I couldn't believe that we got a letter from a compliance inspector that said, "You got good job, you guys." And you want to know what the first thing in that binder after that visit was? I put that letter in there. So the first thing an inspector would see was the last inspector's kudos that, hey, you guys did a great job. They can be a positive experience, but we've got to be prepared. So I'll send you out this how to prepare checklist, and we're here to help. If you want to have us do a risk assessment to prepare for a consultation visit or just to get prepared, give us a call and we're happy to help out with that. I am sorry I went long today, but you knew it was going to happen. Okay, Doug and Brent, you got to show you wrote down the time. We are 57 minutes and 30 seconds into this. You got to show us your time going into it.
Here you go.
I can't read it.
5 minutes.
55. Doug?
57.
What'd you say?
57.
57. Doug wins. Wow. All right. Everybody, if you've got questions, go ahead and type those in the chat box. Missy, I apologize. I'm just getting back to you for correction facilities. If the process is to have any and all that go into the facility have a criminal background check, are we okay to ask for background checks? That is a really good question. I believe so. These inspectors, I am 100% sure, have gone through background checks. I would specifically ask your attorney that question. I would actually probably call up OSHA consultation and ask them, hey, if compliance shows up, can I ask for them to show a criminal background check or some sort of a credential that shows that they can enter a facility. So I guess the question might be, if another law enforcement officer comes to your correctional facility from another agency, do you require them to show a background check, or do you just require them to show a badge to show that they're an officer? And is that adequate? to meet our requirements for a criminal background check. If it is, that's probably the direction I would go with Utah OSHA, is just to ask that ahead of time. Have your inspectors gone through a criminal background check? And I am 99.97% sure that they have, and they can provide that information. Okay, I don't see any more questions. Doug, Brent, I said a lot of words. Did I miss anything?
Jason, I'm sure you did.
I'm sure I did too. All right, folks. I appreciate your attendance. I'm sorry we went 17 minutes long, but hopefully that gave you a good direction and a starting point to get going on this. Hopefully you've got your programs in place and you'll be ready when this happens. But remember, we're here to help, and let us know if wherever we can help. All right. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate your attendance. Go out and have a safe day.
Let's go have lunch.
Where did my...